Not de-risking the business. Now, this is a pretty important one, really, because really all a fundraise is to an investor is how much risk there is in the business. And the further along you get and taking risk out by making things more certain, the more chance an investor is likely to invest in you, and the more money they might give you, and the higher they might pay for that. So I'll give you a typical example of, for me and the other serial entrepreneurs, what kind of pitch we get. Right, this is 8 times out of 10. This is what we get. So I've got this great idea for car washing on demand, which my mum and friend would definitely use and pay for. So I'll tell you what the investor thinks when I read out each paragraph. Right. So an investor at this point is thinking, is car washing on demand a thing? Do people really want that? Don't they use normal car washes? Is that in the home? Why would anyone care? Your mum and friends looked at it. Okay, that really again doesn't tell much because your mum and your friend don't really want to hurt your feelings, so they don't really say what you really need to hear. So a lot of questions coming up at this point. Myself and 2 friends are working on this in our spare time while in full-time employment, and we've built a great business model and we've drawn up some wireframes about how it could look. So again, an investor's thinking, okay, friends, are these people you've worked with before and you trust, or are they just your best mate and you've had an idea down the pub? You say they're working in full-time employment. So are you serious enough about this? Have you put savings aside and are you going to focus on it full-time? Or is this something where, it's not really risky because if the business fails, you're still in your job? You've built a business model, so you've done something in Excel and you've drawn some designs. It's like, oh, okay. Really nowadays that's not enough, right? You kind of need to see teams who have left their jobs, really shown that they're committed and taken a lot of risk, perhaps putting even a tiny bit of cash in on their own, and got some traction in terms of not just drawing up wireframes, but probably building something. You asked them about marketing. We're easily going to get people using word of mouth and buying lots of ads. Okay. And again, investor thinks that doesn't really sound like a plan. That sounds like you're just using some buzzwords. Anyone can say they can build something, then lots of people will come. But show me a process you've been through to prove you've given this a lot of thought. In the first year, we'll only spend £100,000. We'll break even in 18 months, and we'll make £5 million of profit in year 3. Again, an investor's thinking, wow, £100,000 doesn't sound a lot. Do they really know what they're doing here? Because a good employee is going to cost £50,000-60,000, and that's before office space and before you've done any marketing. So where's the credibility behind that? Break even, investors don't really care too much about break even because A, it's never the case that it works out that way. And B, an investor wants you to build a really big company. They don't really want you to break even in the first 18 months. They'd rather you reinvested your profit into growth. And 5 million of profit in year 3, possibly. Again, we all know it's pretty much guesswork, right? So you'll have to justify why that's the case. So, a typical pitch in front of investors, there's some of the concerns that they have. Now, going back to de-risking it, here's really what you should be doing, right? So customer development, which is really proving that you've identified and understood a problem, right? It's normally a pain. So rather than just saying like car wash on demand, you would really say, would you know that 80% of people would like to get their car washed more often, but never find the time, and it's really inconvenient. And to show that, we went out and we went down the streets. We surveyed 150 people. We've got the results that said that's the case, and they would use it more often if it was more convenient, if someone came around the house to do the car wash. Oh, and we managed to get half of them to prepay some money to prove that they're not just saying it, right? That's the kind of customer development. Anything like that where you've kind of de-risked whether that's a thing or not. Because ultimately, investors don't really know if your idea is good. What they do want to see, though, is that you've proven that the customers really do have that pain and that problem, and that you have proven that and have a possible solution. Marketing channels. So, again, in the last example, we saw that you can't be really generic, and no one really knows, again, which channel is going to be effective for you. But really, they want to see a process. So often you want to say, okay, look, you've considered like 10 things, maybe 15 things, anything from flyers to ads on the internet, like Google AdWords or Facebook ads. Maybe you're going to just write a lot of content and get people to come and engage with you that way. Whatever it is, show that you thought through how much it would cost and the resources involved, and you've narrowed it down to 3 things. and that you're actually being realistic and you're going to run some tests. So maybe you've started to write some content and you've measured the results, or you've bought some ads on Facebook already. Just showing you there's a process behind it. The team. So yeah, you've got to show that it's not just 3 people part-time while doing a full-time job. But you've really got a group of people who understand the domain. So you've got some real insight into the sector. You've got some grit and hustle that an investor knows that you're going to do whatever it takes to make this work. And we really believe you. And in fact, you're really good at selling and building, which is all you need really at the end of the day. I know one person before the webinar said that they were a solo founder and asked my views on that. Unfortunately, it makes it really difficult because there's so much work to do as a solo founder that you'll find yourself being outpaced by people who have a team. And it's such an emotional journey as well that a co-founder really kind of helps you in the really down times. And investors will look to see if you can convince others to believe in your vision and join you. If you can't do that and you can't build a team, it's unlikely you're going to be able to build a big company. So solo founders are pretty much a no-no these days, unfortunately. Early traction. So again, we kind of mentioned a little bit with marketing channels. Build something, right? Show you've got perhaps some early customers. There are some numbers. We're not asking you to have everything fully formed, but there's a big sort of trend now, which is what's called minimal viable product. Again, we'd take a whole nother course to explain that, but really all it boils down to is you done the least possible work to show that you have something that might solve someone's problem. Right. So in the case of like that car wash example, you've just actually got people to ring up when they need it, someone to come around and do their car wash. You've sent some interns or yourself around to do the work. You've received some money, and those people then go on to buy from you again every week. Right. It's something to prove that it's not just down on paper. And finally, assumptions as well. You have to have reasonable and realistic assumptions. So we talked about, hey, I'll make £5 million profit in year 3. It's not the value that's important here. It's showing that you know the triggers and the levers that affect the business. So you could say things like, if I'm a website online, I'm a retailer, I know that the things that are important are my conversion, so visits to sale, how much people spend, so my average basket value, and where I get the traffic from. And I know if I can improve these by X%, and here's some ideas I have around that this is how we're going to make that business work. So again, it's not the values necessarily, apart from, you do want to know it's going to grow and be big. It's that you understand what contributes to those values.